Welcome to Empowered Within, a soul-quenching, transformational podcast that will set your soul on fire through candid and inspiring conversations. Leading experts, celebrities, healers, and I share our journeys of how we've overcome challenges to living an empowered life from within. I'm your host, Jennifer Pilates. Welcome to another episode of Empowered Within. Hi there, and welcome to today's show. I'm so excited that we have back in the studio with us the practical numerologist, Felicia Bender. Felicia writes about and teaches ways to use numerology, spirituality, and intuition to understand ourselves and others on a deeper level, to validate our life's purpose, and to develop tools to understand how to trust our own intuitive language. Felicia is the resident numerologist of astrostyle.com and is featured in many media outlets, including Refinery 29, Women's Health, Elephant Journal, and so much more. Welcome back to the show, Felicia.
Oh, I'm so excited. We talked about reconvening in September, and so here we are. It's wonderful to be here.
I'm so excited to have you back. We are soon going to have to coin you our resident numerologist.
I would love it. I love talking with you about this stuff. Your enthusiasm is contagious, so I love it.
Yeah, we have so much fun. So I know we've talked a little bit about what we wanted to touch on today, so I am ready to hand over the numerology wheel to you and see where you're going to take us first.
We're saying that just to kind of give us an overview of the year, right? And
what we've got left of this beautiful, fun, exciting time.
This beautiful, fun, exciting 2021, which is very interesting, I find, for all of us, because all of us everyone I know is like, can it possibly be September? Yes, it is. No, it isn't. It's been so fast. It's been so slow, right? It's that the polarity that we're getting and the duality going on. And yet, numerologically speaking, this is and has been and continues to be until the end of the year a number 5 universal year, because in numerology, we can understand cycles of time that we go through. The universal year is basically suggesting the energetic imprint or supportive energy or guiding energy that we're all experiencing globally. We add that very, very simply by adding together the numbers of the year. 2021 is 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 1. That equals 5. The 5 is all about freedom. And when it shows up here, it's also it's a very frenetic, very ungrounding, very uncertain, very roller coastery, it's kind of the energy feels very edgy, and it feels very, it's very catalytic energy. And what I mean by that, it's always pushing us. And this energy this year is about change, ultimate change. And yet for these first 9 months, it's kind of like, again, I don't know if you've ever been on one of those vibrating plates at the gym or something, right? It's kind of like that. It's like you're trying to stabilize your core, so that you can strengthen your core so that you can really stand strong and be stable and not fall over, right? It's that same kind of feeling, I find.
That is an excellent description of this year and last year.
Yeah, trying to strengthen our core muscles, right? And so really in September, this energy kind of peaks, and then we're kind of rolling down the mountain into the next energy, even though we do have to complete it. And yet what the 5 really brings to us, and I think we all are feeling it, is a lot of confusion, a lot of choices, a lot of different things, and a lot of demands for change. And a lot of globally, people looking at the multi-levels of how we experience and define freedom and what our freedoms are, from a lack of freedom to over freedoms to abusing our freedoms to losing our freedoms. All of these things are really coming into play as a front of the line, right? About what we're all experiencing. It's also a sensuous, experiential year where we can really lean over into, don't really self-indulgence, addictive tendencies. Don't want to deal with that, so let's just have another drink, right?
Another M&M, please.
One more bag of M&Ms, please. And give me the toggle bar for the video game and let me, continue. So there's that too. So if we've all looked at kind of the deterrence around really settling in and making some determinations, right now we're kind of, I find it that at this time of year, it's when we're kind of been there, done that, where we can kind of start delineating the bright and shiny objects as just that. They're like coming at us, but they're meant to zoom by us and land somewhere else. But we've still been looking at them like, oh, was that meant for me? Oh, no, that's meant to go over there, right? So right now, I think globally, it's been quite a frenetic, topsy-turvy time this year. It's probably an understatement.
Just a little.
Right? And so what we're really moving into in 2022, which is interesting numerologically, because if you look at it, it's 2022. We got a lot of twos in there, a lot of twos, and the 0 is an intensifier in numerology. So whenever it shows up, it's really intensifying the experience that you have in whatever number is being represented, I guess, is a way of putting it. So a lot of 2. And so the 2 overall, the underlying energy, I think, coming in is all about love, all about partnership, all about the good of the whole. Right? It's not about me. It's whether we like it or not, it's got to be connected. It's got to be us. What is the best for us, for all of us? It's very sensitive energy, kind of emotionally volatile sometimes. And yet, so there's going to be an undercurrent of that, and that is going to demand that we're all kind of, take the opportunity to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes before we get really reactionary, right? Step back a moment.
That would be nice after this year.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
Step back and breathe, and not react. Just take a moment. And the 6 is also very much conducive around this, because the 6 is the number for the entire year of 2022, and that's more about home, nurturing, responsibility, family, kind of that duty service. It's a little self-sacrificing. So again, we're moving into this, taking all the frenetic changes and now moving them into place and kind of playing with them like a wonderful ball of Play-Doh, right? How do we want to form this? How do we want to shape this? And how do we want to form a more nurturing world, a more connected world, a world where we actually care about each other. It's about caretaking, and it's about all of that. It's also a very creative, visionary vibe, the 6. Even if you look at the number 6, it's kind of like a pregnant belly, right? I call the 6 kind of that cosmic parent sort of energy. So we're all going to be kind of called upon to really step up to some sense of responsibility, to kind of review our relationship patterns overall. And again, this is globally, and to kind of lean into the warm and fuzzy when we can, and all of that. So hopefully it'll be a little bit softer. The flip side, or the opposing forces here, are a lot of judgment, a lot of control, and a lot of perfectionism that can kind of be thrown in there to be worked with. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense when you look at where we are today, and hopefully where we're working towards, that you're still going to have that opposition of, no, I won't go. And you're like, you have to go. It's better for you.
Yes, exactly. It's like you're a little kid who doesn't want to go to school, right? And it's like, no, you gotta, sorry, I know you didn't do your homework and you're going to have to, pay the price of that, but off you go.
Right, exactly. So, yeah. Well, that all sounds really promising.
What I'm experiencing across the board with clients and just in my own personal life is it's also a time where people are peeling away that sense of that they have to be in relationships with people that don't light them up, right? It's and part of the energy of the 6 is, who do I feel really, really good and positive and empowered by and inspired by and with, before I engage with them, while I'm engaging with them, and after I'm done engaging with them. And if I don't, why are they in my life? Now, of course, we have to deal with people, right? We have to deal with our work. Really, I'm not just saying we have that choice and we just, cancel culture, just block everyone. Right. And yet what it is offering us the opportunity to really make some deeper levels of determinations about who we want to share our world with, our personal world. And then it will extend into, where find the community, find the people where you thrive. Right? I mean, that's a very simple way of looking at it, but where do I thrive? And why do I always feel like I have to go over here or do this when I'm like, oh my God, you'd rather throw yourself off a 50-story building than do that, but you go do it because why? Because the feeling of you have to. And relationships are key. And I'm finding, especially these past couple years, and yet this year in particular, relationships have come into high, intense focus here, under the laser beam. And it's also to take it that step further. It's like, who am I in relationship? What is my programming? Right? It's really looking at, I think there's a lot of work coming out right now about trauma. I mean, Dr. Gabor Mate is, coming, out front with this and many other practitioners and doctors, that sort of thing, talking about that and talking about that our whole world is evidenced of the trauma. We have created this world out of traumatic circumstances. So, and it's not to pass the ball of responsibility or blame to that. Well, I can't help it. I have trauma. It's not that. Right. It's locating it and then working with it, through it, and moving it around. Right. But we can't do that if we're like, I'm okay. Right. Everything's normal. Right. Everything's fine. That wonderful word, fine.
Fine. Really, Felicia, I'm fine.
I am fine. I am so fine. Oh, you can tell by the tone of my voice that I am fine.
Damn straight. Yeah. Well, and I think that's again going back to, dare I say, the beauty of this last year and a half. I mean, dare I say, you couldn't have shaken a snow globe harder, but we're not done the year yet, so I'm going to be careful what I say. But seriously, it's like, OMG. And so, yes, how can you not really be looking at, you have to look at everything now. No one's given a choice. The universe is saying, now's the time to look. Now's the time to change. Thus, the migration with so many people, the change in jobs, the continuous change in jobs happening. And even though it looks like maybe that's happening out of something that's detrimental, it could be a detrimental and a positive, not necessarily in a negative.
Well, change doesn't come from doing the same thing the same way. I mean, I think it's so silly and simple to even have to say that out loud. And yet we all work with this in our own lives and see it. Someone's like, I don't want this kind of relationship anymore. I want this, I want that. And you're like, and yet I'm not willing to do. So what are you doing differently to move that around? Nothing. I'm doing the same thing. I just want something else to arrive at my doorstep differently. Right. And that will never happen. Right. And so I think, to your point, it is the snow globe has been smashed against the ground, right? And we're trying to pick up those little fake pieces of snow and put them somewhere. And so it is that point to which we have to burn things to the ground in order to rebuild. And it's never comfortable. It's always anxiety producing, especially for those who are empathic, especially for those who are intuitive natured and all of that. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot for everyone. Right. And yet, especially for those who identify in that way. So it's changes,
I know,
as David Bowie would say.
Exactly. Yeah. I know. So when we look back over 2021 and when you were looking at the numerology going into it, were you like, well, this could be an interesting year? Or were you in the back of your head going, there is going to be some batshit craziness going on here?
Both, because I kind of put both in the same container.
Me too.
I don't separate things out. I love the dualistic nature of things. And I really mean that, because oftentimes that's what we're being asked to move into, is how can you hold something that is seemingly oppositional and yet see how it is actually a cohesive whole, right? It's kind of the higher level of understanding that more spiritual nature of duality and of polarity and how that all works together. And the beauty of that is that you can, to get to that other, and I'm trying to say it the right way. It's once you kind of get there, you can let go. And I think that's where a lot of us are going to. It's like, this controlling thing is not working. Yeah. And I don't know about you, Jen, but I will even go throughout my day and I will notice when I'm feeling anxious. I'm like, what? And then I'll actually stop and go, what is it? Why are you? Because I'm projecting something into the future. I'm projecting something into the past. And where the anxiety comes in is when I feel like it's not the way it should be. I mean, I'm kind of Byron Katieing it right now, right? In the work. It's like when we feel like when we're just pushing up against something that is and demanding in our space that it shouldn't be that way. That's when the feelings of not being at ease come in. And if you can even just mindfully go, oh, okay, what if this is just okay right now? You can feel this visceral sense of relief.
Totally. Yes, you can totally feel that, just the release. That surrender, that kind of let go, let God.
And flow. Yeah. Let's just flow with this,
just
right?
Go with it. Love that.
It is actually like, I'm a visual gal. So it's that visual even of the 8 in numerology, which is part of your chart as well, is that number of abundance. It's that manifesting energy. It's a very powerful, if you look at it, the 8 sideways is the symbol of infinity. It's a symbol of feminine power as well. And yet if you think about it, if you clog one of those, if you hold something and you clog that artery, because the visual I have is that it is an incessant and infinite loop of energy, and it's constantly flowing, like the 8 itself is a conduit, right? It's like this piping that's flowing, constant energy there. And yet if there's a blockage, like if we're trying to control it, if we're trying to hold it, if we're trying to think it, if we're trying to whatever, even the word try is a word that I really don't believe in. Right? And yet when you're trying, that's when it really, really clogs up. Right. Which is not to say that I think the magic here comes into that difference between when we think about, for instance, the law of attraction. Oh, I want a Ferrari and it's not in my driveway, so it doesn't work. And yet it's a matter of having that point of attraction, allowing it in, and yet following up with right action. Because what you're saying, Jen, is that you're thinking, oh, I want to move, but I'm going to let that go. Now something comes up on Facebook and your internal compass, your intuitive wisdom says, ooh, zing, that looks good. You could have, ooh, zing, and ignored it.
Right.
You could have zing and just gone on and waited for God to speak to you. And even though, it was the speak, even though the Facebook post, you know what I'm saying? Right, it's kind of an obvious statement. And yet I think we need to remember that it comes down to right action. You took the appropriate action at the appropriate time. Right. And we don't need to, action doesn't mean that we have to keep pushing, right? Or controlling or doing. Yeah. The doing can be done with effortless ease, as Deepak Chopra would say,
Yeah. It's so interesting that you brought up the 8 in my chart, because there was an issue with the abundance flowing, right? So here I was trying to control this, that, and the other thing. And then all of a sudden everything stops, just like you're saying. So it's like someone was squeezing the center of the number 8. I was squeezing it so tightly that nothing was flowing. Health wasn't flowing. Abundance, money, nothing was flowing. I let go.
And it naturally
and it just naturally finds its way. Naturally, yeah.
Because it can, even if you keep with that visual and that metaphor, it can't stop flowing unless there's a blockage. It is designed to flow. The design is impossible not to do what it's meant to be doing in that realm, unless, again, it's destroyed or blocked in a certain way.
Right. And even being intuitive, and I'm sure you have your days too, we trip ourselves up sometimes. Like, we're only human. It happens. That's
Absolutely.
why we have each other to go, wait a minute. And that's why it brings it back to that sense of community and the right relationships in your life, like you were talking about as we move forward.
And I love you saying that as well, because it's kind of like, everyone needs that to heal the healers, right? To have your people, because most psychics I know cannot read for themselves usually. Right. They're here to go on their pathway as well. So I know a lot of intuitives who are kind of hot messes, and I say that lovingly, because often that is just it. Isn't it about how these tools, right? We're all here, and whatever tool resonates with us, and with the numbers, because numerology is often kind of misunderstood, right? It's like, okay, well, what can you get out of a number? And it carries an incredible amount of information, and and then it's the interpretive dance around it.
There are many things people need to balance in their lives in order to maintain happiness and emotional health. You need to look after your romantic, spiritual, and physical needs to keep them in balance. When feeling down, seeing an intuitive advisor could be the optimal way to get back on track. An intuitive reading session could be the tool you need to reduce the ambient noise in your life and focus on things that truly matter, growing, finding clarity, and empowering your life. Head over to jenniferpilates.com to claim your special intuitive email reading. Again, that's jenniferpilates.com.
What is numerology anyway? Basically, we use your name and birth date in terms of a personal chart to give you, an overall roadmap, right? About who you are, what you checked in to be doing, how that's going to transpire, cycles of time and everything. And a very specific cycle of time that I love talking about, especially at this time of year, is the personal year. So I call that in numerology, we experience the personal year cycle. It's a 9-year cycle. And throughout our lives, I call it kind of knowing the theme to your party. So much more fun, right?
Yes,
and yet we can feel it though at the end of the year. It's that New Year's resolutions thing, and everything's changed. We can feel the energy shifting. And for each of us, depending on our birthday, we're moving into a very specific energy, right, that is supporting us through the year. And so, again, with this 9-year cycle, you currently are in the final throes of an 8 personal year, speaking of the 8. And you have an 8 expression, which is kind of like your rising sign astrologically. If you're astrologically inclined, it's kind of a similar application there. So this is a very powerful year for you, and it is a power year. The 8 as a personal year is all about money, all about empowerment, all about reviewing your financial picture, all about re-upping your mission statement and your mission plan. And it really is all, the 8 is often kind of, to me, misread in numerology as just the money number, right? It's all about money. And yet, to me, even more than money, it's about power and empowerment. So this 8-year is the beginning of a very significant 3-year transition cycle for you. And if any of you are out there who are in an 8. Oh, and very basically, I think it's like, well, how do we know what number we're in? If you take your month and your day of birth, and then you add that with the current year, if this is the year that you want to know what your personal year is. So for you, your May, which is a 5, you're born on the 7th, which is a 7. This year, 2021, we talked about, is a 5. And so then we add that together. 5 plus 7 is 12, correct?
Correct.
Count my math. Okay. 12, and then add 5, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Then we reduce if we have a 2-digit number, we're reducing to a 1-digit. So 1 plus 7 equals 8. So you can calculate your own personal year number if you're interested in listening on that. But the 8 is a very, very power-oriented year. So I find it's where we get to have experience. We draw in people, places, experiences that bring us those lessons or bring us those opportunities to strengthen. It's kind of like where our weak link is in our chain right now, in our personal empowerment chain, is what gets to be looked at, right? And what gets to be worked with. And then next year, you're going to be moving into a 9.
I know, it makes so the story behind
does that make you nervous?
It does. And I don't remember.
Okay, we'll talk about that, but tell me your story.
So the story as to why the 9 makes me nervous, everyone, is because a few years back I had a friend who was not a numerologist. She was like, oh my gosh, I looked up this cool thing and it'll tell you what year you're in and da 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 da. So I was in a traumatic moment in my life. So what I really needed to hear was unicorns, rainbows, and lollipops. And instead, this was like 3 years ago, the person was like, oh my God, you're in a number 9. And the explanation that they sent to me was like health crisis, death, mood. And now in the moment of already in a crisis, I lost my shit, people. Like lost it. Like I was like, how could you send this to me in this moment that I'm having of like a literal breakdown? What are you thinking? Well, come to find out that she was wrong. But instead, I stayed in this I was like traumatized for like 3 days. 3 days over this going, oh, I can't have another health crisis. I can't, I can't. La, la, la. So thank goodness, fast forward, then we bring beautiful Felicia into the world to tell me that everything's going to be okay.
Well, and I love that you talk about this story because this is one of my, I don't want to say pet peeves, and yet it is a point of concern for me because I think that if you are listening out there and you practice anything in this realm, if you're an astrologer, a numerologist, or any kind of reading, this has power and it really is a sacred duty, right? And a sacred honor and duty to use it wisely and well. And to really, and we're all going to say the wrong thing at the wrong time at some point, right? So we don't have to police ourselves, be really hard on ourselves. And yet to totally be mindful about, because sometimes people want just the facts, ma'am, and they want it out on the line and they really work well with that. Most people don't. Right? Most people need validation. They need confirmation. They need a softer landing. They need to see other ways in which they can view this experience. Right? And so I've had people come to me, for instance, for readings who have had, like you're talking about, super traumatic. They're like, I got a numerology reading 10 years ago and it traumatized me, just like what you're saying. Yeah. I had a 2-life path who said a numerologist told her she could never make money. And I'm like, what kind of person, let alone practitioner or facilitator, would ever tell a person that? First of all, it's just, it's just not true. Right. And yet it lands pretty deeply. Right. Yeah. So just cautionary tale, think twice, speak once.
Before you share, because it goes into someone's head and it's there. Like you see Jaws and you go in the ocean and I don't care who you are. You tell me that all of a sudden you're not like, how deep am I? What was that?
Right?
It happens.
If you start hearing that music, you are swimming damn fast.
Right. The accuracy of your numerology is just so dead on. With the newsletter that you send out every month, you do that complimentary if someone goes to your website and signs up. And it's like you've sent it to me each and every month. And this is just general for all of us. Or, well, it's a general for all of us, and then you can pick, what year you're in at that point, and then you decipher it down one more step, and so then it really is for me. And I feel so special.
Yeah, we all need to feel special, and what I love about it is it can just direct traffic, right? It can put us in the right lane,
right?
And give us a flow. And go ahead.
And I was going to say, and even so much more so, not only does it give us a flow, but it gives us this groundedness as well as validation connection to what you may be feeling, and a lot of clarity too.
And it's a language, right? Because it's a code, it's a language, and it brings you down that pathway of giving you all of this incredible information.
Today's podcast is sponsored by JP Active Athleisure Wear, Pilates and yoga inspired apparel that combines style and versatility. JP Collections take you from the studio to the street, looking and feeling your greatest. With sizes ranging from 0 to 24, there is something for every beautiful shape and size. Discount promo codes will be available in today's show notes.
And so to go back, though, very briefly to just follow up on what your trauma experience, because I get that a lot when people will come to me and they're like, I am scared crapless about this 9 personal year.
I'm a little concerned still.
So here's the deal. So here is how I really began to look at this and to conceptualize it. And I mean this absolutely sincerely. The 9 is about conclusions, endings, letting go, surrender. It is more of a year of, if you're an astrology person, it's kind of like a retrograde year where all the words come in, review, revisit, regroup, right? All of those things. The way that you can really look at it, the way that I've really come to is it is commencement. It is a commencement ceremony for you, because think about it. You're in school, you're in college, you're in your undergrad program, you're in your 4th year, you're working in May, you've got commencement. You're going to walk across the stage and get your diploma. So you still got to study, you got to finish up your classes, you got to do all of that. At the same time, you're kind of enjoying going to the same bar every Friday night with your group of friends, because you're realizing that this has been great. This has been your world. This has been your reality. And yet it is going to end.
Oh, I love that analogy.
You're going to get your degree. You've graduated. But now what are you going to do with that degree?
Right.
Right? You've got to move on. You're going to move to a different city. You're going to go get another job. You're going to get married or break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend that you've had for this past whatever. All of those transitions that come in. Some of your friends are going to stay in the college town and keep their server jobs. Some already have an internship somewhere else, blah, blah, blah. So it's changing. Your whole world is going to change. And yet, if you don't, what are you going to do? Stay in the dorm room until you're 45? I mean, it's just not natural. It's not. So the 9 year is a beautiful point of transition and transformation. And when you're open and ready, it's magical.
Okay. I'm open and ready. I love how you just put that. So if I may, we took it one step, because that's a general number 9 for us all, everybody.
Yeah.
So if I said, because now, I'm a little perked up now. I'm like, oh, you're talking love and relation. You're talking marriage, girl. So if you were to look maybe at my chart for, hoots and hollers, would you be able to see like, okay, yeah, I could see that based on your number? Or is it like, no? You
mean right now?
Well, for the number 9
at all? So here's the thing overall is the number 9 overall is not a key time for marriage.
I could see that.
Okay. It's a time, if you're in a relationship and it's not working, where it might slough off, it might go away. It can be a time where where if you're not willing to do that, sometimes sometimes flings or affairish sort of things come in, these intense emotional things that are catalysts to move you into the next phase. I personally gave birth to my first daughter in a 9 personal year, right? So what I'm saying is it's not all death, destruction, gloom, doom, and trauma. It's when your life is changing forever, right? in a more substantial way. I became a mom forever, at that point. So it's not bad, the things that can happen. It's just very life changing. So to go back to your question, it's not impossible to get in a relationship during a 9, but usually it's more likely that you would get into a relationship in a 1 personal year. You might meet someone, you might start cultivating and all of that. I mean, again, if you're thinking about it, Jen, if you decide to move geographically and it doesn't actually happen until mid-year or something, how much time do you have to do that and be in a relationship and everything else? You know what I'm saying?
Truly,
so
I know.
So there's not enough time and energy in the day to do that. And yet, so 1 would be more in line with really situating in a relationship.
I like that.
Does that answer your question?
You know what? I feel totally good about that. I feel really good about that. But you could you could meander in the 9 a little.
Yes, you can. Let's just put it that way. And yet, just think about it. You don't want to get hot and heavy in a relationship your last semester of school.
Good point. Unless they're where you're moving to.
Right. Unless they're ready to move, right? I mean, there are all kinds of ways that can align.
I truly love that analogy. I hope it lands home for so many others as it has for me, because it really has made this 9 seem quite fun and very celebratory, actually.
It is. It is. It really can be. So it's endings that open doors to beginnings, right? I mean, it's that kind of cliche. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. And yet that is absolutely true.
Right.
So, the thing to remember about the 9 is usually what happens is you're being asked to, by the universal forces, to let go of something before you know with distinct clarity what's coming in to fill its spot. Mm-hmm. And that's where we humans have some issues. Mm-hmm. Right? We kind of want to drag something in to fill the space of something. And I say metaphorically, and sometimes in reality, it's kind of like you're in a relationship. People who've been in a marriage or in a relationship and they're unhappy and they want to divorce or separate or break up, but they won't do that until they have someone waiting in the wings. Right?
Oh, yes,
until they've all,
a lot. Yeah.
We do hear about that because we don't want any gap time, right? We don't want we can't look at ourselves for a moment, right? So metaphorically, and again, sometimes literally, the 9 personal year won't allow that to happen. You must let go, let the relationship go, and kind of hang in with yourself for a moment. Be in that liminal space, self-reflect. And regroup and recalibrate, right? So that you will have room and you're of the vibratory threshold that you would like to be to attract the new, better, more in alignment things into your life.
I'm on board. Woo woo! Number 9.
I knew you would be.
Woo-woo!
I knew you would be.
I'm all excited now.
And the interesting thing for you, Jen, is that you have a number 9 soul urge. So this is a part of you. This is a part of your energetic field anyway. The 9 is the compassionate sort of humanitarian, the kind of quirky creative, and you're always learning the value of impermanence, of understanding that truly everything, the good, the bad, everything is temporary. Right? As we move through into carpe diem, right? To enjoy it as you go. I always like to look at someone's full chart and see where it triggers, tweaks, or informs, right? What part of you will be tickled the most on that one. So,
That's great to know. See, everyone, you too can have Felicia as your personal numerologist. I mean, numerology is everywhere, and I love that. I love that you dig into that.
Yeah. Well, and I think as corny as it sounds and as cliched as it might be, I think one of the things numerology really did for me is to truly make me really understand, and right there in black and white, that everyone comes in on a different journey or pathway, however you want to, delineate that. And so even if you have kids, it's not about you, even, your parents, your spouse, your whatever, you are not responsible, nor are you the one to drive their car. It's their car. And
Truly.
it's right. And as soon as we really realize that, we can really, it really offers us so much freedom around our feeling. Because don't you know so many people who they spend a lot of their days being worried, being anxious, being, all of that because of what someone else is or isn't doing.
Right. Truly.
And you're like, how's that working for you?
Right. How's that going? Yeah.
Yeah. And then to realize that other people may feel the same about you. Other people may be worried about you. They may want you to do things differently. They may want you to change, and they're stressing out totally about that.
I'd like that home, that grounding, that anchor. And I'd like my RV so that I can get in my RV and go wherever I want, anytime I want.
It's a perfect thing for a 5. I have a 5 life path friend who was living in a houseboat. And then she was living in a cabin, by the way. And then she that's her thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a 5, that is your wheelhouse. Yeah. You're like, I want to feel this sense of freedom, this adventurous feeling, this what's next, this constant movement, right?
Right. That's why I think it's perfect. You have an RV, you can travel for a little weekend, a big weekend, a 32-hour trip, but come home to your home with your garden by the water would be lovely.
That would be grand.
Lots
and
of
that
freedom.
works. And that works really well for your profile because you have, the 8 powerful, it's about manifesting in the world, right? So it demands a little bit more stability that way. And yet overall, your number is a karmic debt number with the karmic debt in the number 4, which is about hard work, grounded energy. So I love the fact that you're able to balance, because overall, the 4 and the 5 don't really get each other. The 4 is more, rigorous and dogmatic. And the 5 is more of the fearless flyer, as I said, or the intrepid traveler. And yet they both need each other. Right. And so that you're able to go, that is often what I'll say to a 5, especially with this configuration, is that you need home base.
Right.
You need home base where you feel really that sense of anchoring, grounding, nesting that you can satellite out of.
Yes.
And come back.
And
right?
That's the part I haven't found just yet. Well,
yeah,
I may have. That'll be next month.
I start to say it's en route.
It is en route. It really is en route. I'm excited about it. And and the RV is en route too. So
cool.
Yeah, awesome. We're going to take the podcast on the road.
On the road, baby.
That is the goal for 2022. We're going on the road so we can come to a town near you. We could even do something in person. So I'm super excited about that because that's going to give me everything that I really love. Yeah. Being out there, being in my own space, but being able to see America and see good people and bring everyone joy.
Bring it all together.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, I love it. I love it.
So this has been so amazing, Felicia. Thank you so much. And please tell our listeners, where can they go to book a reading with you? You also are having retreats. You have courses. You have books. Where's the best place to head?
Just head on over to FeliciaBender.com. So that is the portal for all things for the numerology curious. So FeliciaBender.com.
Great. And all of that will be in our show notes. You can hop over to JenniferPilates.com. All of her information for links where you can click to get her book and the website and everything so that you too can dive deeper into your numerology. Well, as we say, until next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Empowered Within with Jennifer Pilates. Your feedback is important. It helps me to connect with you and gives me insight into who you are and what you're enjoying about the show. For today's show notes and discount codes from today's sponsors, head over to JenniferPilates.com. Until next time, may you live an empowered life from within.